All right, so welcome to this deep dive, and this one is going to be all about Robert Greene.
Robert Greene.
Yeah, you know him, he's the guy who pretty much wrote the book on power and strategy and just human nature in general.
Yeah.
Like, even, huge names like Jay-Z, Kanye West, Drake, they all reference his work.
Mm-hmm.
So he's obviously onto something, right?
He's definitely tapped into something.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is really dive deep into some of his key ideas from interviews and his books.
Yeah.
And just kind of see how they all connect and, hopefully give you some practical stuff you can use.
Absolutely. I think Greene's work is all about practical application.
Yeah.
It's not just theory.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do we actually use this in the real world?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like a cheat sheet for the game of life.
Yeah, I like that. A cheat sheet. Okay, so where do we even begin with this guy? I mean,
I think a good place to start is with power.
okay.
What does he even mean by that? Because, it's not about being some kind of dictator, right?
Right. Definitely not about domination for Greene.
It's more about influence.
It's influence.
It's about feeling in control of your own life and then using that control to shape outcomes.
Okay.
And he often quotes Malcolm X,
Oh, yeah.
who said, absolute power corrupts, but absolute powerlessness corrupts even more.
That's interesting.
And what's fascinating is that Greene argues that feeling powerless can actually lead to really destructive behavior.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I can see that. Like when someone's insecure, they might lash out or try to manipulate others.
Yeah,
It's like they're grasping for power in all the wrong ways.
they're trying to fill that void.
Right.
And Greene believes that self-mastery is the foundation of true power.
Okay.
So if you can't regulate your own emotions and impulses,
Yeah.
you can't expect to effectively influence anyone else.
Right. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So then how do we get to that level of self-mastery?
Well, his book, The 48 Laws of Power, dives deep into these strategies.
Okay.
It's definitely a bit controversial.
Yeah, I've heard about this book, but there's a reason it's so popular. And one of the laws that always gets people talking
Yeah.
is law number 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies.
Whoa, hold on. Using enemies?
Yeah.
That sounds a little intense. Doesn't that go against, everything we've been taught about being a good person?
It's definitely provocative.
Yeah.
He's not saying to be intentionally malicious,
Right.
but he does argue that in certain contexts, like the workplace,
Okay.
sometimes the person who can best help you achieve your goals
Mhm.
might be someone you've previously butted heads with.
Okay, so you're saying like turning a former rival into an ally,
Yeah.
that could actually be a strategic power move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It demonstrates that you're prioritizing the goal above personal feelings.
Right.
And honestly, that can be incredibly disarming to the other person.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
It shows a level of maturity and focus that commands respect.
Right. Okay, so maybe there's more to this use your enemies thing than meets the eye.
I think so.
What about some of the other laws? Are there any that stand out?
Well, another one that's really relevant, I think especially today,
Yeah.
is law number 3, conceal your intentions.
Okay, conceal your intention.
And this isn't about being deceptive or like a con artist.
Right.
It's about choosing strategically when to reveal your hand and when to hold back.
So it's kind of like playing poker.
Exactly.
Sometimes you bluff, sometimes you show your cards.
Exactly.
It just depends on the situation and who you're playing against.
It's about reading the room, understanding the power dynamics at play,
Okay.
and then deciding what level of transparency will give you the best advantage.
So are you saying then that all humans kind of engage in these power games to some extent?
I think to some degree, yes.
Even people that we consider to be good people?
Greene argues that even figures like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.
Whoa, okay.
understood power dynamics. They were incredibly strategic thinkers who knew how to leverage influence to achieve their goals.
Okay, so it's not necessarily about being good or bad. It's more about understanding the rules of the game
Exactly.
and knowing how to play it effectively.
And that brings us to another fascinating concept that Greene explores,
Okay, what's that?
the shadow self.
The shadow self.
This is the idea that everyone, no matter how virtuous, has a darker side.
So we all have a little bit of Darth Vader in us.
In a way, yes.
Oh, okay.
But Greene isn't advocating for us to, embrace our inner villain or anything.
Right.
Instead, he urges us to confront our shadow selves, to
Okay.
acknowledge those less than perfect aspects of our personality.
Right.
He even says, get rid of your moral superiority. We are all cut from the same cloth.
That's a powerful statement. It reminds me of, some of his views on narcissism.
Yeah,
Like, he doesn't see it as entirely negative, right?
you're right. He actually argues that a healthy dose of self-love is essential.
Okay.
But like anything when taken too far, it can become problematic.
Oh, right.
And he sees narcissism as often stemming from childhood. When a child feels neglected, they might develop an inflated sense of self to compensate.
So it's a kind of survival mechanism.
Exactly.
Interesting. So how do we walk that line then between healthy self-love and destructive narcissism?
Green advises, don't run away from your narcissism, use it in a healthy way and acknowledge it.
Okay.
So for example, he talks about channeling that desire for attention
Yeah.
into achieving something meaningful,
Okay.
creating something that benefits others.
So it's about transforming that potentially negative energy
Yeah.
into something positive and productive.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, before we move on to seduction, which
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk about because I know that's a big part of Green's work.
It's a fascinating area.
Yeah. But before we get there, I just wanted to circle back to power for a second.
Sure.
Because there's one thing I wanted to make sure we touched on.
Okay, what's that?
It's self-awareness.
Ah, yes.
Green talks a lot about how true power comes from understanding your strengths and weaknesses, your value, your motivations. You need to know yourself deeply before you can effectively influence anyone else.
It all starts with looking inward.
Right. So that brings us to seduction,
Yeah.
which I think might surprise some people because, when they hear that word, they think, oh, this is just about, romantic relationships.
It's much broader than that.
Right. So what does Green mean when he talks about seduction?
Well, he sees it as another form of power.
Oh.
A way to influence others by making them feel good.
Okay, so it's not about manipulation.
Not necessarily. It's about understanding what makes people tick,
Okay.
what their needs and desires are, and then using that knowledge to connect with them on a deeper level.
So it sounds like it requires a lot of empathy
It does.
and observation.
Absolutely. And this is where Green's ideas become particularly relevant in the digital age,
Oh, yeah, interesting.
where dating has become increasingly complex and often superficial.
Yeah. I mean, online dating can feel like a whirlwind.
It is.
It's just like swiping and superficial interactions.
Right. And Green has observed that people often approach dating
Yeah.
with this expectation that love and romance should require no effort.
Oh, really?
And he sees that as a major mistake.
So he's advocating for putting in the work.
Absolutely. He actually advises viewing dating as a form of theater and drama.
Oh, that's interesting.
So putting effort into the experience, whether it's dressing up,
Oh.
choosing a thoughtful location, or simply being fully present,
Mm-hmm.
shows genuine interest in the other person.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
Eh.
And he contrasts this with what he calls the cheapness of modern dating.
Cheapness. What do you mean?
Well, he uses this example of someone using a discount code on a first date.
Oh, wow.
And he argues that this signals a lack of generosity,
Okay.
not just with money, but with spirit and energy.
Mm.
It sends this message that you're not willing to invest in the experience
Yeah.
or in getting to know the other person.
Ouch. I can see how that would not be a good look.
It's not a great first impression.
No, but it's not just about, being stingy with money, is it? What does he mean by generosity of spirit and energy?
He's talking about being fully present, engaged, enthusiastic,
Okay.
showing up with your best self, and making the other person feel valued and special,
Right.
creating an experience that's memorable and meaningful.
And that can be incredibly seductive.
It can.
It's about going beyond the superficial and creating a genuine connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Green believes that this kind of seduction is becoming increasingly rare
Yeah, I can see that.
in a world that's so dominated by online dating and instant gratification.
Right. He's even spoken about the negative impact of internet porn, hasn't he?
He has.
Yeah.
He's concerned that easy access to explicit content
Yeah.
has created unrealistic expectations about sex and relationships,
Mm.
and that it's contributing to the difficulties that a lot of young people face when trying to find a partner.
Right. So how do we combat these negative influences then?
Well, Green's advice is to develop your social skills and learn the language of gestures
Yeah.
that you just can't acquire online.
So it's about getting out there and interacting with people face to face.
Exactly. Learning how to read body language, how to flirt, how to create chemistry in person.
Right.
These are skills that can't be downloaded.
Right. You can't learn them from a screen.
Exactly.
That's a really important point, especially I think for our listeners, who are navigating the modern dating world. So I'm curious for you, like, how has the digital age impacted your own dating experiences? And what advice from Green do you find yourself really resonating with?
Yeah, it's interesting how all of this ties into Green's thoughts on confidence,
Okay.
because he argues that true confidence can't be faked. It comes from real accomplishments,
Oh, okay.
from developing skills and achieving
So
goals.
it's not about like swaggering around, pretending to be something you're not.
Exactly. He actually tells a story about when he was younger,
Yeah.
and he tried to project confidence that he didn't really feel,
Hmm.
and it completely backfired.
Yeah. I guess people can kind of see through that facade.
They can crease. Green believes that true confidence is earned through mastery,
Okay.
through the process of dedicating yourself to a craft or skill
Yeah.
and pushing through those inevitable challenges and setbacks.
Right. And this makes me think about his concept of finding your life's task.
Yes.
And he's not a big fan of the word passion, is he?
Not really. He thinks it can be a little misleading.
Okay.
He argues that true mastery often involves periods of boredom and frustration.
Right.
You have to be willing to push through those less than glamorous moments
Yeah.
to reach a level of true excellence.
He uses the example of Stevie Wonder, right?
Yes, Stevie Wonder is obviously a musical genius,
Right.
but that talent didn't just appear overnight.
Yeah.
He spent countless hours practicing honing his craft,
Right.
even when it wasn't always fun or exciting.
So it's about finding something that you're drawn to and then putting in the work even when it's tough.
Exactly, and Green believes that in the early stages of any pursuit,
Yeah.
observation is key.
Yeah.
It's more important to watch and learn than to try to impress others.
So it's like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
You learn by doing,
Right.
by immersing yourself in the process and paying attention to the masters.
Precisely. He even talks about working with the grain of the brain,
Okay.
which he believes is action-oriented.
Okay.
So our brains are wired to learn through experience, through trial and error.
That reminds me of something we talk about a lot on this show.
What's that?
It's the importance of taking action,
Yes.
of actually applying the knowledge that you're acquiring.
Right.
You can't just read a book or listen to a podcast
Right.
and expect to become an expert.
You have to get out there and do the work.
Exactly. Now, before we move on, there's another really important aspect of Green's work
Okay.
that I want to discuss.
Yeah. What's that?
And it's something that he's become even more attuned to after a really life-altering experience he had a few years ago.
You're talking about his stroke.
Yes, in 2018.
Yeah.
This experience had a profound impact on him, both physically and psychologically.
Absolutely.
He had to confront his own mortality
Yeah.
and find new ways to cope with the limitations that his condition imposed on him.
He's been very open about the challenges he's faced.
He has.
The paralysis on his left side,
Yeah?
the difficulty with speaking and writing.
It's incredible how he's managed to continue his work
It is.
and, even find a new level of appreciation for life.
He's talked about experiencing this initial delusion that he would quickly recover,
Yeah.
followed by a period of deep depression as the reality of situations set in.
Oh, wow.
But ultimately, he found ways to adapt and even thrive.
So what are some of the strategies that he's used to cope?
He's mentioned the importance of meditation,
Okay.
focusing on his work, appreciating the simple things in life. He's also talked about remembering that there are always people
Yeah.
who are facing even greater challenges
Right.
and finding strength in the support of his loved ones.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of immense adversity,
Yeah.
there's always hope. And there are always ways to find meaning and purpose.
This brings us to a question for you.
Yeah.
What resonates with you from Green's journey? And how can you apply his strategies to your own life?
Yeah.
We all face challenges and setbacks,
We do.
but it's how we respond to those challenges that really defines us.
That's such an important point. Now, given his deep understanding of human nature
Yeah.
and the challenges that we face,
Right.
I'm curious about Green's overall outlook on humanity. Is he optimistic about our future?
It's complicated.
Okay.
He's expressed concern about our tendency to misuse technology and, kind of create problems for ourselves.
Right.
But he also sees a glimmer of hope in the younger generation.
Okay. He believes that they have the potential to change the world for the better.
Yes, he sees them as more idealistic, more open-minded,
Okay.
and more willing to challenge the status quo. He believes they have the energy and the motivation
Yeah.
to create a more just and sustainable future.
That's a sentiment that we've heard from a lot of guests on this show.
It is.
And it's heartening to think that despite all the challenges that we face,
Yeah,
there are people out there who are working towards a better world.
it is. And it brings us to our final question for you.
Okay.
Do you share Green's hope in the younger generation?
Yeah,
It's a big question. Yeah.
It is, and it's easy to get caught up in all the negativity and forget that there are people out there fighting for a better future.
Yeah, Green himself embodies that spirit of resilience. Like he's talked about finding solace and appreciating the simple things in life,
Mm.
even in the aftermath of his stroke.
Yeah, that's powerful to be grateful for the things that we often take for granted,
hmm
like the ability to walk, to talk, to experience the world around us.
Yeah, he even describes this feeling of gratitude for the very things that he's lost,
Mm.
because it's given him a deeper appreciation for the fragility of life.
That's such a profound perspective shift.
It is.
To find joy not just in what we have, but also in what we've learned from what we've lost.
Exactly. And ultimately, Green's message is one of empowerment.
Okay.
He doesn't sugarcoat the realities of human nature,
Right.
but he offers tools and strategies for navigating the challenges,
Yeah.
for understanding ourselves and others better, for finding our own path to mastery.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Robert Greene's world,
Yeah.
I think it's important to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Right. A little something to ponder.
Yeah, echoing Greene's advice, take a moment today to appreciate the simple things that you might usually take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
What brings you joy, and how can you cultivate more of that in your life?
Such good advice.
It is, and we encourage you to explore more of Greene's work and continue your own journey of self-discovery and mastery. Until next time.